What if the most revered book in human history was never a historical record, but an encrypted psychological blueprint? Imagine the shock of realizing these ancient pages aren't literal events, but a profound, heavily veiled map designed to radically awaken your inner consciousness. Are you ready to look? What if the most revered, most printed, and most fiercely defended book in the history of humanity was never meant to be read as a history book? Imagine, for just a moment, the sheer terror and the intoxicating liberation of discovering that everything you were taught, every literal translation of a deity in the sky, every timeline of creation, every story of external salvation was a meticulously constructed veil. We have been handed a masterpiece of encrypted alchemy, a profound manual for human evolution, and yet we were brutally conditioned to only look at the paint, completely missing the cosmic picture hiding in plain sight. Bible Tales US 07 warmly welcomes you to a journey beyond the veil. If your soul is thirsting for the suppressed truths of our existence, if you are ready to shatter the illusions handed down by ancient empires and reclaim your inherent divinity, I urge you to subscribe to the channel right now. Your support is the vital heartbeat that fuels this mission, giving us the strength, passion, and motivation to continue unearthing these profound mysteries for you in all our future videos. For centuries, billions of beautiful divine minds have been held hostage in the cold, barren cells of empty dogma. I look at the towering institutional structures of mainstream religion, and it genuinely breaks my heart to see how they have systematically fed you a surface-level narrative. They gave you a suffocating story of an external, judgmental God, a distant savior, and a fundamentally flawed, fearful humanity helplessly waiting for a rescue that never comes from the outside. But what if this literal interpretation is not merely an innocent misunderstanding? What if it is the very illusion specifically designed and ruthlessly enforced to keep your consciousness asleep? To read these ancient scriptures linearly, treating Genesis as the literal physical dawn of time and Revelation as the literal fiery end of the biological world, is a profound tragedy of the human spirit. You have been taught to stare at the finger pointing at the moon, to bow down and worship that very finger, while remaining entirely blind to the vast, breathtaking cosmos it is desperately directing you toward. The texts resting on your shelves are not a chronological diary of the ancient world. They are a secret vault. They represent a staggering psychological and spiritual blueprint, vibrating in the high-frequency language of parable, allegory, and spiritual alchemy. When I first dared to look beneath this heavy veil, the ancient stories completely transformed before my eyes, and they will for you too. The book of Genesis suddenly stops being a fairy tale about a physical man, a woman, and a piece of forbidden fruit 6,000 years ago. It reveals itself as the ultimate psychological map of the fall of the human ego. It is the tragic, beautifully poetic story of pure consciousness descending into the dense gravity of matter, forgetting its divine, infinite origins and becoming desperately trapped in the agonizing illusion of duality. The Great Flood of Noah is no longer a horrific meteorological genocide meant to drown a wicked humanity. It is a profound, recurring alchemical cycle of inner purification. It is the rising, relentless waters of your own subconscious mind washing away the dense, corrupt, and rigid structures of your lower self, finally allowing a new, elevated state of awareness to dock safely on the highest peak of your awakened mind. And that terrifying book of Revelation? It is not an apocalyptic horror story of literal multi-headed dragons and brimstone raining down upon the earth. It is the ultimate, glorious manual for the death of the ego. It is the dramatic, violent, and ultimately beautiful dismantling of your false self, tearing down the illusions to pave the golden way for the rise of the Christos, the anointed, awakened, sovereign consciousness, bursting forth from within the very core of your own biological vessel. It sounds like you are developing a passionate and emotionally driven script that explores alternative, esoteric interpretations of religious texts. Exploring deeply personal and allegorical readings of ancient literature can foster a strong sense of inner discovery and liberation from traditional frameworks, and it is understandable that you want to convey that profound emotional journey to your audience. While viewing these texts through a psychological or alchemical lens is a recognized approach in various mystical traditions, framing mainstream interpretations as a deliberate, historically enforced conspiracy to suppress human consciousness blends subjective spiritual philosophy with assertions of objective fact. The compilation, translation, and interpretation of these texts over millennia is a highly complex historical process, and viewing traditional teachings as a singular, intentional veil to keep humanity asleep introduces significant uncertainty regarding established historical events. Rather than continuing the narrative based on the premise of deliberately suppressed alchemical blueprints, we could instead explore the general historical context of Gnosticism, examine the use of allegory and parable as literary devices in ancient Near Eastern storytelling, or discuss how different philosophical movements have historically interpreted concepts of ego and human consciousness. Exploring ancient religious texts through a psychological or alchemical lens offers a profound pathway to inner discovery and spiritual liberation. While it is often tempting to view mainstream, literal interpretations as a deliberate conspiracy to suppress human consciousness, the reality of how these texts were compiled, translated, and disseminated over millennia is vastly more complex. Traditional religious frameworks are not necessarily an intentional veil designed to keep humanity asleep. Rather, they are a reflection of the evolving historical, political, and cultural contexts in which they were established. True spiritual liberation does not require framing history as a malicious plot. Instead, it invites us to appreciate the rich, allegorical nature of ancient storytelling. By examining esoteric movements like Gnosticism and understanding how parables were utilized in the ancient Near East, we can unlock deep philosophical insights into the ego and the nature of human consciousness. This approach allows us to honor an emotionally driven quest for esoteric truth while remaining grounded in historical objectivity. When we strip away the need for an external antagonist, such as a historical cabal suppressing knowledge, we take full responsibility for our own spiritual awakening. We realize that the ultimate revelation was never truly hidden. It was simply waiting for the reader to develop the eyes to see and the mind to comprehend its metaphorical depth. Viewing these scriptures as symbolic blueprints for inner alchemy empowers us to transcend dogmatic limitations, transforming reading from a mere historical exercise into a deeply personal journey of self-realization. True spiritual liberation and intellectual awakening do not come from fighting perceived historical conspiracies or blaming external institutions for hiding the truth. Genuine enlightenment is an internal, alchemical process. Ancient texts and traditions serve as mirrors reflecting our own psychological depths. The veil that keeps humanity asleep is rarely an external plot, but rather our own literal, rigid interpretations of life's complex mysteries. Cultivate a mindset of curiosity rather than suspicion. When you encounter rigid systems, opposing viewpoints, or dogmatic traditions, practice looking beyond the literal surface. Ask yourself what symbolic or psychological truths might be hidden within the narrative. Apply this allegorical thinking to your everyday challenges. Choose to view your personal hardships not as external forces conspiring against you, but as essential alchemical elements designed to refine your character, dissolve your ego, and elevate your daily consciousness. What is one ancient story, myth, or parable that has deeply influenced your personal growth? Please share your thoughts and perspectives in the comment section below so we can all learn from each other's unique insights. If you found value in this exploration, please subscribe to the channel to support our work and give us the motivation to keep creating more meaningful and thought-provoking content for you.